Well, what's going on, you guys? It's Vafa here again. Another guitar lesson for you. This one's about clean playing techniques. If you haven't watched any of my lesson videos before, you know, there's a whole series that precede this lesson, so you probably want to go check those out. And you probably want to check out my website, it's redishredder.com, and you probably want to check out my disclaimer section. I'm going to talk to you a little about what to expect from these lessons. So, if you haven't already, be sure to go check all that out. It'll help you understand this lesson a little bit. But anyway, if you've done that and you want to get on with it, let's just get started. First of all, what the clean playing techniques are is just kind of general techniques that you can use to make your guitar sound cleaner, to get rid of as much extraneous noise as possible. And what that will do is help your listener hear the notes that you are trying to play a lot more louder, a lot more cleanly. So it's just like a fundamental types of techniques that every guitar player needs to learn, you basically implement it using your right and left hands. You know, your right and left hands work together to mute sounds that the listener shouldn't hear. Okay, so there's three kind of points that I want to make. First of all, the thing is, metal is all about extremes. Guitar should just either be roaring loud or just completely silent. And so you can hear that in all kinds of different songs. And I'll just give you a quick example of kind of what I mean. You know, so it's like stuff like that. You've got loud riffs and then just in between them just silence. So you want to be able to have as much of that as possible. Second thing is, you just want to get rid of those extraneous noises using your right and left hand. I kind of talked about that a little bit. One thing you can do that will help is to use a noise gate. It's kind of like an effect pedal that will just get rid of all the unwanted noise. But that will only help you in certain parts of your songs and certain different types of techniques. You still have to learn the clean playing techniques, and you still have to master them. So noise gate will help, but it won't solve all your problems. And the third thing is probably the most important. I can't stress this enough, but all these techniques and stuff that I'm going to show you are like second nature to me, and they should be second nature to you too. If you have to consciously think about them, you're probably just going to end up sounding worse. So the analogy I always like to use is sports. So like, let's say LT is trying to make a cut. He's like just got the handoff. He's like running for a hole. And he's like, if he sits there and thinks about it, should I cut through this guy or should I cut through that guy? Before you know, he's just going to get tackled. That's it. But so what he does is, he's got to just be completely, instinctive and second nature. He just, he sees a hole, he just cuts through it. No hesitation or anything like that. Same thing with these guitar playing techniques. One thing before we start, always remember that just lifting your finger from a fretted note will mostly deaden that note. So what I mean is, if you just hit a note like this and you just lift your finger, it mostly deadens it. So that will come into play later down the road. But anyway, the first technique I always like to talk about is what I call just regular left hand muting, or deadening, I guess you could call it. When you're playing something, you just want to silence it. What you want to do is silence it as much as you can close to the nut. The reason is because you have a lot more natural harmonics towards the middle of the fretboard. So I'll just show you an example. So all I'm doing is just, muting these strings after I hit a chord. It sounds pretty good up here, but if you try to do it a little closer to the middle of the fretboard, there's more natural harmonics. You get stuff like that. It sounds. Another really fundamental muting technique is your right hand muting technique. It should, like I said, work together with your left hand. So on each one of those, when I'm trying to do the silence, I'm silencing it with my right hand. You can either palm mute it, make your right hand go into the position where you would normally palm mute, or you can just go a little bit higher. It will deaden it even more. It's up to you. Okay, next technique I like to call underneath muting. What that is just kind of muting with like the bottoms of your fingers, or the middle parts of your finger. So once again, if you just have a chord, you can't really hear it, but what I'm doing is I'm using the bottom parts of my fingers to mute the high 3 strings. So if I accidentally hit them, it sounds pretty much the same. So here's just hitting the top 3 strings, the low 3 strings, sounds fine. But if I hit all 6 strings, I've got it muted, so I've got kind of like an insurance policy. It's just like gives you an extra tiny little click, but you don't hear like all this. You don't want to hear that. Actually, that brings me to the next technique, is you want to only pick the strings that you're actually planning on playing. So let's say you're playing just like this chord. You want to be able to just pick those 2 strings as much as possible. You know, if you have to just hit all of them, that's fine too, but you should have that insurance policy, or using the underneath muting or any other kind of muting to just get rid of everything else. And then another thing that can help you with this is, if you have to, you can anchor your right hand pinky like on a pickup or on the string, on the bridge, or whatever, if that helps you like feel where the strings are better. I don't suggest you do that though, because it might limit you a little bit, but if you need to do that, that's an option. Alright, another really important technique that we can talk about is what I call tips muting. What I actually do is mute strings with the tips of your left hand fingers. So let's just go back to that power chord I was showing you. What I'm actually doing here is muting the low E string with the tip of my left index finger. So if you actually play the low E string, it would sound like this. Just kind of like that little click. So if I hit all the strings, it's pretty much muted. You wouldn't hear it open like this. That sounds really bad. It's not the chord you want to hear, so it's muted. It'll sound like this. So you can actually use this tips muting technique for solos too. So I'll just give you like a little blues lick or something. So right there, when I was playing that, on every note I was playing, I was muting the string above it with one of my fingers on my left hand. So this technique is actually one of the most second nature techniques they use. You definitely don't want to try to do that, because you might accidentally end up fretting a note that you don't want to. So we're not fretting the notes, we're just muting them, so you don't have any extra sound in the notes. The last muting technique I use is kind of limited in its usefulness. It's what I call thumb muting, where you mute with your left thumb. So here's an example, like just an A power chord or a D power chord. Or here's a D one. What I'm doing, if you can see here, is I'm just muting it, muting the low E string with my thumb. Like I said, it's pretty limited in its usefulness, but if it comes naturally to you, it can help out and make your playing a little bit more clean. Alright guys, well that's it for this lesson. All these techniques that I've just shown you are going to be closely related to the rhythm guitar lessons that I'm going to be showing you. So make sure to practice them, make sure to be as clean as possible, and yeah, I'll see you later. Peace.